Welcome to another tip of quilting the Kaye Wood way. Today we're going to take a look at diagonal half squares. And if you've been quilting a while, you've run into diagonal half squares, or they're also called half square triangles. It's a square made from two triangles. And they're used in many, many, many different quilt patterns. And there are many different ways to cut them. But what we want to do is take a technique that we can make them any size we want. We won't waste any fabric, and they're easy to do and easy to remember the technique. So what I've done is I've started with two pieces of fabric, right sides together, a dark and a light fabric, and I've lined them up. And the first thing I did was to put my Starmaker 8 in the corner here and cut a diagonal line. And for those of you that have to cut bias strips, that's how you do it. That's a bias. And now I can use my small, I call this my small triangle, and the rest of the piece, just to differentiate. First I'm going to cut strips from this, and I want to cut them 3 inches wide. They could be cut any width, depending on how wide you want your, or how big you want your diagonal half squares. You can see where I cut it 3 inches, 3 inches, and this one doesn't quite make it, so that's sort of a discard. Then if you need more diagonal half squares, this is a quick way to cut bias. Fold it so you don't have as long a piece to cut, and it's already a true bias, so by putting a line on the ruler right on the cut edge, let's move that up a little bit, we can continue cutting, and you may have a whole yard you want to cut into bias strips. Okay, let's just take the strips from the small triangle here. I've already sewn these into what I call tubes, because that's what it is, a tube. It means I've sewn down both long edges, and it actually is a tube. You can put something into it, which I guess is the definition of a tube. All right, and so I've done the same with both of these strips. And now I'm going to take the Starmaker 8 and place the point right there at the top. Make sure I don't have any selvage, because I didn't bother to cut that off. This is the time when you would do that. And we're just going to cut triangles. Turn it upside down and continue cutting till you use up all of this fabric for your triangles, and that might be enough for your quilt block. But we just keep cutting. And then you have a point here that has 3 or 4 stitches across. Those stitches need to come out now. And sometimes you can gently pull them, or sometimes you might need a seam ripper. And here we have our diagonal half square. Let's go and press it, because that's an important part. Press it exactly the way you sew it. We want the dark triangle on top. Now we'll let the iron do the work. And just move right across it once. And you have a diagonal half square. And every one will be exactly the same size. And you're ready to put them into some kind of a project. And have fun with your diagonal half squares. And be sure and join me when I bring you another tip, quilting the Kaye Wood way.